The music was too loud for a lie like that. That was the first thought that clawed through my skull as I stood by the table of plastic champagne flutes, pretending to look for napkins. It wasn't even what she said. It was how she said it, casual, like ordering a coffee or commenting on the weather. Like it was just a tiny, floating truth she plucked out of her soul and tossed into the room without thinking anyone would hear. But I heard. I didn't mean to. I wasn't snooping or spying or sneaking around corners like some cartoon jealous husband. I was standing in the open. I was right there. She just didn't care. The lights flickered pink, then purple. Someone spilled something behind me. Glass cracked somewhere nearby, followed by laughter. But everything went silent in my head after the words left her mouth. Just 6 words, soft and sharp like broken velvet. I don't even love him anymore. No build-up. No context. No warning. Just that sentence, slashed into the night like it had been dying to get out of her. She was 3 feet away. She didn't even lower her voice. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. I stared at a tray of mini quiches like they held the answers to something cosmic. Like the cheese arrangement would explain why my world was now spinning in reverse. I didn't turn around. I knew her voice. I knew her laugh. I knew the way she exhaled through her nose when she thought something was obvious. I knew the sound of her shifting from fake sweetness to raw cruelty when she was around people who didn't wear wedding rings. I'd been hearing it more often lately. And the person she was talking to, some woman in a backless dress who kept sipping wine like it was her job, laughed and nodded, like what she said wasn't devastating. Like it was just a Tuesday thought. And me? I stood there with a mouth full of nothing. My hands sticky from the condensation of my untouched drink. My mind flicking through a slideshow of every time I kissed her forehead. Every late-night run to the pharmacy when she had migraines. Every stupid, just because flower I brought home. Every time I said, "You okay?" when she looked sad for no reason. None of that mattered. I was a joke and a backhanded confession. That moment didn't just change how I looked at her. It changed how I looked at myself. Because if she really meant it, that she didn't love me anymore, then why the hell was I still there, pretending to be her husband, when she already left me months ago in her heart? I didn't turn around right away. I couldn't. If I had, she might have seen the look on my face, the kind of look you don't recover from. That kind of raw, exposed stare that says, "I just heard you destroy everything I thought was real." Instead, I stayed frozen, pretending to adjust a cocktail napkin on the table like it required a surgeon's precision. People kept brushing past me, bumping elbows, laughing, clinking glasses. The party didn't care that my marriage had just cracked open like a fault line beneath my feet. It kept pulsing forward, music thudding, drinks flowing, everyone wearing those shiny masks of everything's fine. But I wasn't fine. Eventually, I made myself move. I turned slowly, casually, like I hadn't just been shattered by the person I came here with. And there she was, Lila, standing a few feet away, mid-conversation with that same woman. She looked beautiful, of course. She always did. Her golden hair curled around her shoulders just right, and that red silk dress clung to her like a second skin. Her glass was half full. Her smile was full fake. She didn't even glance my way. She didn't have to. Her words had already landed like shrapnel. I walked past her. Didn't say a word. Just kept moving, down the hallway, through a half-open door that led to the host's study. It was quiet there, dimly lit, lined with books nobody read and photos of vacations they probably forgot. I shut the door and stood there, gripping the edge of a bookshelf like I needed to anchor myself to the planet. She said she didn't love me anymore. She said it like it was a secret she'd already told a dozen people, and now she was just comfortable enough to repeat it out loud. And if she said that here, in a room full of wine and strangers, what had she said elsewhere? What else had she done elsewhere? That thought, it changed things. It flipped a switch. I pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking, but not from sadness. From curiosity. From panic. From a quiet, rising dread that had been trying to speak to me for months. I opened our shared cloud account, the one we rarely used except for grocery lists and travel photos. But something told me to look. Just look. And there they were. Albums I didn't recognize. Hidden folders she probably forgot were syncing. Photos from hotel rooms. A beach I'd never been to. Her in outfits I'd never seen. A man in the background of too many shots to be random. He was always facing away. But she wasn't. She was always looking at him. Smiling for him. Like the woman I loved had been living a second life. One full of fire and risk and late-night confessions that didn't include me. I sat down on the edge of the leather couch, still staring at the screen. My heart wasn't even racing anymore. It was just tired. Like it had seen enough. I felt like a fool, like the background character in someone else's movie, a prop she used to steady herself while she reached for something more exciting. And yet, I still hadn't said a word to her. Not at the party. Not after the photo discovery. Not even during the car ride home, where she laughed about the music and told me she was so glad I came. I just nodded, like the idiot I'd apparently always been. But I wasn't done yet. I wasn't going to blow up. I wasn't going to beg or shout or cry in front of her. No, I was going to wait. Because the next time she said something like, "I don't love him anymore," I was going to be right there, looking her dead in the eyes when she realized I already knew everything. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I sat at the kitchen table with the lights off, my phone screen the only glow in the room, like some digital campfire burning through every illusion I'd ever believed in. I scrolled through the photos again, one by one, torturing myself with each frame. Her smile looked real. Not the smile she gave me after paying bills or doing laundry together. This was different, unguarded, electric, like she had been set free from something. From me. At some point around 4 a.m., I noticed one photo had GPS data attached to it. A location in Maple Ridge, 2 towns over. A small boutique hotel I'd never even heard of. I looked it up, and sure enough, it wasn't the kind of place you'd accidentally find yourself in unless you were planning something. Planning someone. I should have confronted her. That's what everyone reading this probably thinks. March into the bedroom, flick on the lights, wave the phone in her face, and demand the truth like a man who still believed the truth meant anything. But I didn't. I just sat there with a sour taste in my mouth, stomach churning, heart folding into itself like damp paper. I didn't want her excuses. I didn't want her tears or explanations or fake apologies. I wanted to see what she'd do next when she still thought I was clueless. That morning, Lila woke up humming. Humming. Like the woman who had whispered to her friend that she didn't love me anymore, and then taken a beach vacation with another man, was living in a romantic comedy I didn't audition for. She kissed my cheek on her way to the shower. I flinched, but she didn't notice. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. She made coffee like it was any other Thursday, wore a blouse I'd never seen before. New perfume, too spicy and bold, the kind you wear when you're trying to leave an impression. I asked where she was headed. She said a team strategy day out of town. Said she'd be home late, maybe past dinner. Then she smiled, like she thought I was still stupid enough to believe her. I watched her walk out the door with her overnight bag, something I only noticed because the zipper was stuck halfway, and I saw the corner of a lacy bra peeking through. I'd never seen that one before either. 10 minutes later, I got in my car and followed her. I know how that sounds. Pathetic. Creepy. Desperate. But if you've ever had your soul slowly set on fire by someone you trusted, then you understand, sometimes you need to see the smoke with your own eyes. She didn't even try to hide it. Took the highway to Maple Ridge. Pulled into the parking lot of the exact same boutique hotel from the photo. Sat in her car for a few minutes like she was rehearsing her lines. Then he showed up. He wasn't who I expected. He looked ordinary. Khakis. Sporty jacket. Balding slightly at the temples. Not some dashing bad boy or younger rebound. Just a guy. But she lit up when she saw him. Like he was air after drowning. They didn't even look around. Didn't check if anyone was watching. She got out, threw her arms around him, and then walked inside like it was their anniversary. I sat in my car for an hour. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, letting the truth settle into my bones like cold rain. That was the moment it became real, not just a suspicion, not just a line overheard at a party. This was betrayal in its purest form. A full story unfolding right in front of me, and I was the punchline. But I still didn't go in. I still wasn't ready to explode. Instead, I opened a new note on my phone and wrote one sentence. She thinks I'm too quiet to ever fight back. And that was the first lie I planned to break. I sat in that parking lot until early afternoon, long after they'd vanished behind the tinted glass doors of that hotel. Every few minutes, I'd glance at my phone like I was waiting for a message that would make this all go away. Something like, "It's a misunderstanding," or, "I'm sorry, Wally." I panicked. But nothing came. No call. No text. No guilt. She'd gone fully silent, as if the part of her life that involved me didn't even exist anymore. It's a strange thing, watching someone you love disappear from your reality without ever leaving the same room. Except now, she had actually left. Physically. Emotionally. Completely. I could have stormed in. I could have demanded a room number or raised hell at the front desk. I even gripped the door handle twice before letting go. But I didn't need more evidence. I had already watched it happen. What I needed now wasn't another confirmation of the truth. I needed to decide who I was going to be in the aftermath of it. Because that version of me she talked about at the party, the one who was safe, lukewarm, invisible, that guy was dissolving minute by minute. When I finally drove off, it wasn't toward home. It was toward my brother's place, across the county line. I hadn't told anyone yet, not about the hotel, not about what I heard her say, not even about the photos. But I needed a space to breathe where every wall didn't scream her name. I didn't explain much to my brother, either. Just said I needed a few nights away from town, a break. He raised an eyebrow but nodded. He always was the no questions asked kind of guy. I envied that about him. That night, in the guest room, I opened my laptop and started going through everything: bank accounts, emails, cloud storage, texts. I didn't do it to punish myself. I did it because I needed to understand how deep the lie ran. And it didn't take long to find it. Venmo transactions labeled art supplies that matched dinner reservations at the same hotel. Deleted emails that were never fully wiped from the trash folder. Shared playlists with songs I'd never heard, but lyrics that stung like paper cuts. And then, the messages. She had used an old Gmail account I'd completely forgotten about. One she used to use when she was freelancing years ago. Maybe she thought I'd never think to check it. Or maybe she didn't care anymore if I did. There were dozens of emails to, and from someone named Z, yeah, just a letter. Z turned out to be that same average-looking guy from the hotel. But the things they wrote to each other? They weren't casual. They weren't even just romantic. They were intimate in the way that comes with time. With history. With months of secrets folded between lines like origami. She told him she wished she had met him before me. She wrote that he made her feel alive, like she was finally waking up from a decade-long nap. A nap? Is that what our marriage had been to her? Just 10 years of sleepwalking through life with the man she promised to love? That's when the grief cracked into something else. Not rage exactly, but humiliation. I felt small. Ridiculous. Like I had been wearing a costume labeled husband, while she moved on without bothering to tell me the show had ended. But I didn't smash anything. I didn't send her a threatening message or leave a note under her pillow. Instead, I started documenting. Quietly. Every detail. Every timestamp. Every transaction. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I was done being the man who didn't see it coming. I wasn't going to shout into the wind and hope she heard me. I was going to write it all down. Every dirty little detail. So when the time came, and I could lay it out calmly, fact by fact, while she stood there wondering how the man she thought was weak had turned into someone capable of flipping her entire narrative on its head. Because now I knew. And I wasn't going to let her keep living two lives without consequence. The next move would be mine. But first, I needed to see how far she'd go before I finally pulled the curtain back. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual, not because I had somewhere to be, but because my brain had started doing this thing where it shakes me awake before dawn, like a fire alarm that won't stop going off. I sat on the edge of the guest bed in my brother's house and stared at the dust floating through the pale sunlight creeping in through the blinds. Lila hadn't texted. Not even a hey, where are you? Or hope you slept okay. Nothing. She was either still with him, or worse, she didn't even notice I was gone. I should have felt heartbroken, but all I felt was focused. That numb sort of clarity where everything slows down and becomes strategic. I wasn't thinking like a husband anymore. I was thinking like someone who had been played for too long and finally saw the game board. I made coffee and sat with my laptop again. No dramatic music, no movie-style revenge montage. Just a man in a hoodie, typing slowly, building a document no one ever wants to write. I started compiling everything: screenshots of her emails, financial records, timestamps, travel patterns. I kept it organized, clinical. No angry notes or sarcastic comments. Just data. Just truth. But something unexpected happened that morning. Something small that changed everything. As I was backing up my own phone just to be safe, a set of voicemail transcriptions showed up from an unknown number. I don't usually check those because spam calls are the bane of my existence, but one caught my eye. It was from a few days ago. The transcription was partial, broken in that glitchy way that never quite gets sentences right. But I saw my name in it, and a phrase that stuck out like a jagged piece of glass. He's too close. If he finds out, it's over. I tapped play. It was Lila. Her voice. Whispering. Panicked. She was talking to someone, not Z, but someone else. A woman. It took me a few seconds to recognize the voice, her old college roommate, Angie. They hadn't seen each other in years, or so I'd thought. But here they were, talking about me like I was some unpredictable wild card. I told him the business trip got extended. If he suspects anything, he'll flip. You don't know him like I do, Angie. Wallace looks soft, but he stores stuff. He collects pain. He doesn't explode, he records. If he finds the photos, or God help me, the email chain. That was all I needed to hear. She knew I wasn't dumb. She knew I noticed everything, even if I didn't always say it. And she was scared, not of what I'd do, but of what I knew. That was the first time in years I felt power shift back into my hands. That same day, I made an appointment with a lawyer. I didn't want to torch the earth or make a public spectacle. I just wanted out. Clean, fast, without giving her time to flip the story and paint me as the insecure husband who misread everything. I didn't want her rewriting our history to her friends, claiming I was boring or distant. I wanted evidence, a plan, and my dignity intact. But before I could file anything, I needed one last piece of clarity. So I made a call. To Z. I wasn't sure he'd pick up, but he did on the second ring, no less. His voice was cautious, unfamiliar. I didn't say who I was at first. I just asked him one question. Do you know she's married? There was a pause. Then a quiet, who is this? I told him. Calmly. No threats, no yelling. He didn't hang up. He didn't argue. He just sighed. Yeah, he said after a moment. I figured it out a few weeks ago. She said you were separated. Of course she did. I almost laughed, but it caught in my throat. Did she tell you we were separated before or after you booked the hotel in Maple Ridge? Another pause. I didn't book it, he said. She did. That mattered more than I wanted to admit. Because it confirmed what I feared. Lila wasn't confused or swept up in some emotional spiral. She wasn't looking for answers. She was designing an escape. We ended the call without hostility. He wasn't the enemy. He was just another prop in her new life. I sat there in the silence afterward, realizing I wasn't even angry anymore. Just stunned. Because somewhere along the way, the woman I married had turned into someone I wouldn't recognize in a crowd. And I'd been standing next to her this entire time. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to hand her everything at once, the documents, the divorce papers, the photographs, and watch her face change when she realized the one thing she never expected from me. That I had been listening all along. 3 days passed before I saw her again. I didn't go back home. I didn't call or text. I didn't even watch her location, though part of me wanted to. I wanted to see if she'd notice I was gone, if she'd so much as ask where I went, if she'd spin some excuse for why her husband had vanished like a sock in a dryer. But she didn't. Silence. That told me everything I needed to know. The day I returned, I didn't announce it. I unlocked the door, walked inside, and stood there for a moment like a stranger in someone else's living room. The house smelled different, strong perfume and candle wax. Something citrusy she never used before. Her shoes were by the door, but her keys weren't on the hook. Her favorite mug was in the sink, half full of cold coffee. All the little things were off. Subtle. Wrong. But I knew how to act normal. I'd been pretending for years without realizing it. She walked in about 15 minutes later, humming something upbeat, with shopping bags on her arm and her phone in her hand. She looked up, startled for just a second, then quickly masked it with a smile. Hey, I didn't know you were back today. Clearly, I said. She froze just slightly at the edge of the kitchen. Her eyes scanned me like she was looking for cracks. You okay? I'm fine. I sat at the table, a man too tired to keep acting and too prepared to fake anything else. We should talk. Lila hesitated, then slowly set the bags down. Her shoulders tensed, just enough to notice if you were paying attention, and I was. She pulled out a chair across from me and crossed her legs like she was at a job interview. What's going on? She asked, too casually. I didn't answer right away. I opened the folder in front of me, slid it across the table like a man delivering paperwork at a settlement conference. It held printed screenshots, photocopies of emails, hotel receipts, and a simple cover letter from the attorney I'd met 2 days ago. No dramatics. Just truth, itemized and organized. Lila stared at the folder for a second, not touching it. What is this? Go ahead. Look. She reached for it slowly, flipping open the top page. Her fingers trembled before she even reached the emails. When she got to the hotel photos, she stopped flipping. Her mouth pressed into a tight line. Her chin dropped. I watched her breathe through her nose, trying to pull herself together like she could still spin this. Wallace, she started. No. I raised a hand, voice flat. Don't insult me with whatever version you practiced in the mirror. She blinked. That caught her off guard. I know about Z. I know about the boutique hotel. I know you said you don't love me anymore. I know you told Angie I was getting too close to figuring things out. And I know you said I collect pain. You're right. I do. But I also collect facts. And these, I nodded at the folder, don't lie. Her eyes welled up, but there weren't any tears yet. That would come later, I figured. When she lost control of the narrative. I was confused, she whispered. You weren't confused when you booked the room. Or when you wrote him that poem comparing his hands to gravity. She blinked. You read those. Lila, you sent them to a shared cloud folder. You might as well have put them in the mailbox. She looked down, then back up at me, the tears finally beginning to show. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. You meant for it to happen, I said. You just didn't mean to get caught by the man you thought was too quiet to fight back. She reached across the table, and I flinched. Not because I was scared of her, but because I no longer wanted her hand anywhere near me. That realization hit harder than I expected. I pulled my hand away and stood up. I'm filing, I said. The documents are ready. I'm not asking for anything except the truth on paper and my share of the house. I won't drag you through court unless you lie. One lie, and this goes public. Her mouth opened, then closed. I walked to the door, picked up my coat, and turned back one last time. You told your friend I was boring, that I was lukewarm tea. Maybe I was. But now you're the one left drinking cold coffee in a house that doesn't feel like home anymore. And I left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't need to. The silence I left behind was louder than anything I could have shouted. I didn't look back once as I walked to the car. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what she'd be doing the moment the door closed behind me. She'd sit there in silence for a while, stunned that the man she thought was emotionally spineless had dropped everything on her lap like a loaded confession. Then the tears would come, not from heartbreak, but from exposure, because now she couldn't hide. Not behind vague excuses, not behind blurry timelines, and certainly not behind her own carefully curated victimhood. I drove aimlessly for a while, not because I didn't know where to go, but because I needed a buffer between the confrontation and what came next. I parked in an empty lot behind a closed bookstore and just sat there, listening to the creak of the old engine cooling down. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to peace. Not happiness, not relief, but clarity. I wasn't confused anymore, and that counted for something. My brother had texted me 3 times already asking if everything was okay. I hadn't answered yet. I wasn't ready to hear his voice or explain the pieces I had finally pulled apart. Instead, I opened a blank document on my phone and started writing something I didn't expect. A list, not of what I'd lost, but of what I had tolerated. Every lie I let slide. Every moment I pretended not to notice the distance. Every dinner where I swallowed silence. Every fake laugh I offered just to keep things smooth. Every time I told myself this was just a phase. Every morning she walked past me like I was furniture. Every apology I made when I wasn't the one who messed up. And somewhere in that list, I stopped feeling sorry for myself. I started realizing that maybe, just maybe, the version of me she walked away from wasn't the problem. Maybe it was the version of me that refused to stand up, that let comfort take the place of connection, that avoided the uncomfortable truths. She betrayed me, yes. But I betrayed myself too, by staying quiet for so long. When I returned to my brother's place later that evening, there was an envelope waiting for me. Hand-delivered. No postage. No return address. Just my name scribbled across the front in her handwriting. I almost didn't open it. But I did. Inside was a letter. 3 pages. No begging. No bargaining. Just words. And those words unraveled everything I thought I knew again. She admitted it all. Not just the affair, but the months leading up to it. The emotional withdrawal. The private chats with friends where she joked about me like I was invisible. She said she never meant to fall out of love, just that she got so used to me being safe, she stopped seeing me at all. And then came the part that caught me off guard. She told me Z had left her. After I confronted her, she called him. She didn't tell him everything, just that I knew. And apparently that was enough. He didn't want to be part of a collapse, she said. He told her she was impulsive, dishonest, and reckless. And then he blocked her. So now she was alone. She didn't ask for me back in the letter. Didn't offer promises to fix things. But at the bottom of the last page, she wrote something I'll never forget. You always thought your silence was weakness, Wallace. But it's the only reason I'm hearing the truth now. I just wish I listened before you stopped speaking to me. I read that line over and over. Not because it changed anything, it didn't. But because for the first time, I could finally hear her truth without flinching. It was broken. It was too late. But it was real. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She'd written it for herself more than me, and I'd already made my decision. The next morning, I signed the final version of the divorce papers and dropped them off at my lawyer's office. It was done, but the story wasn't finished yet, because that night, I got a message that would open a door I never thought I'd walk through again. The message came at 9:42 p.m., just as I was brushing my teeth in the half-lit bathroom at my brother's place. It wasn't from Lila, not from Z, not from anyone involved in the mess. It was from a woman named Elsie, a name I hadn't seen pop up in years. She used to work with me back when I was still in customer support at the insurance firm, before I moved departments. We weren't close, just two quiet people who shared the same vending machine and the occasional awkward chuckle at failed team-building exercises. But the message was simple, short, direct. Heard you've had a rough month. I just wanted to say I always thought you deserved better. I hope you're okay. I stared at it for a moment, not because of what she said, but because of the fact that someone outside the mess had noticed. That someone had seen me all those years ago when I felt invisible. And more than that, she reached out, not to gossip or pry, but just to say, I see you. I sat down on the edge of the bed and replied, slowly, carefully. Thanks, Elsie. That means more than you know. I'm getting through it. She wrote back a few minutes later. If you ever want to grab coffee and not talk about anything awful, I know a place. I didn't jump at it. I didn't frame it as some movie-ending opportunity for new love. That wasn't the point. The point was, I didn't feel stuck anymore. I wasn't walking around with that hollow, sinking weight in my chest. I wasn't reliving that sentence from the party over and over again. I wasn't obsessing over what Lila said behind my back. I wasn't stuck in the what-ifs. For the first time in what felt like years, I was just breathing, living in a clean space, sleeping without second-guessing the silence. Over the next few weeks, I moved into my own place. Nothing flashy. Just a small apartment with good light and floors that creak in a way I actually find comforting. I painted one of the walls blue, because why not? I started cooking meals for myself, not just microwaving survival dinners. I even pulled out my old guitar, the one that collected dust in the closet during all those years when I was too busy being dependable, and started playing again. Pearly, yes, but that wasn't the point. Lila signed the papers. No contest. She left a final note in the mail, just 2 sentences. I didn't know what I had until I lost the silence that kept me safe. I hope you never lose yourself again. I didn't reply. Not out of bitterness, but because I'd finally learned that not every story ends with closure. Some stories end with distance, and that's okay. Some people fade out, and you let them. You don't chase. You don't scream into the void. You just let the chapter close with grace. A month later, I met Elsie for that coffee. It was quiet. Easy. No pressure. We talked about books. About how neither of us ever liked potlucks. About how ridiculous open-plan offices are. We didn't mention Lila. Didn't need to. And when I walked back to my car afterward, I wasn't thinking about what I'd lost. I was thinking about what I was building. Slowly. Quietly. Honestly. Because being a quiet man doesn't mean being weak. It means you take your time. You watch. You feel deeply. And sometimes, the people who fall for noise miss the strength of someone who listens. That was me. Wallace. The man she said was lukewarm. But in the end, I was the one who walked away warm, whole, and finally, completely awake.